Hey everybody, today we welcome Minnesota-based rapper Nur-D. Nur-D has won 95.3 FM's Shut Up and Rap competition 4 times in a row and has performed at musical festivals and venues nationally, sharing bills with the likes of Jaden Smith, Tyler, the Creator, and the Wu Tang Clan. Nur-D's musical content includes all of the things that make him who he is, with everything from geek culture to activism. You can check out all 5 of his albums on Spotify. His TED Talk addresses how the very pillars of his music, storytelling, and origins of his success were forever altered after being thrust into the middle of the uprising that followed the murder of George Floyd. On this episode, we interrogate representation in media, how it can be skewed around racial lines, gender issues, and even mental health issues. We break down how the consumption of mainstream media affects our cultures and talk about the choices we make to take the red pill of truth and authenticity. Nur-D also shares how the events of the last year have shaped his music and artistic expression and discusses using comedy to address injustice and the Black experience. It's about to get real. It's the Elise and John Show with Nur-D. Get it, get it. Nur-D.
How you feeling nowadays?
Man, I am feeling very interesting. Like I'm feeling a very interesting vibe coming through me because we're coming up on a year of quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, like it was supposed to be a couple months.
Yeah.
And we're coming up. And when I say we're, I mean America and similar countries that have been decided to do things the way America has decided to do them. And we're coming up
Shout
on
out New Zealand.
Yeah, shout out New
out.
Zealand who's just like enjoying their day.
Yeah.
Like that was a rough 2 months, wasn't it? And they're just like
John and I had a class that we were a part of that we kind of like I guess led, you can say. He was leading it, I was a guest. And it was really weird. They were all in New Zealand, kind of Australian area. And they were like, oh yeah, so we went to the theater yesterday. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Like, aren't you afraid of death?
Yeah.
I know, aren't you gonna die?
That's
And
so
we've been having
crazy.
concerts this whole time.
Yeah.
This whole time we've been mashing our bodies up against each other. We don't care.
They're
And when
having
there's a
super
lockdown,
fun.
we just stay home.
Yeah.
And we go back out again.
It's so wild. And so here in America, we've been in it for almost a year. We're coming up on a year.
Right.
Because I remember March is when when all of my shows canceled on me was in March. And so I was like, we're coming up in a year of like shutting everything down. And I'm feeling like I have seen more of the 4 walls of my apartment than I ever really thought to have seen. I think I've ordered literally anything you could possibly order at this point off of all the online stuff.
Yeah.
I am.
Wait. What's the? Yeah, let's get into that, please.
Yeah, what am I ordering?
I
mean,
also.
like
Good
real
job.
talk. Like it's tough. So my fiance loves chilies, so we've had a lot of chilies recently.
Ooh.
But I also enjoy.
Pause. Chili's like like a jalapeno? Or
It's
chili
maybe you
like,
don't
with a
have it in
spoon?
Miami. So Chili's is a restaurant chain.
No, you have chili.
Oh shit! Okay, got it.
Okay,
Chili's
I
the
was like-
restaurant. Got
I
it.
was sitting there going like, oh, maybe this is like a
Listen.
Perkins situation. Maybe like this is like a Culver situation.
I'm
Maybe you don't have it
thinking
over
that
there.
you're out there. You're ordering
I thought Chili's
jalapeno chiles.
Oh no, we're not like not my fiance. So she likes Chili's. So we've had a lot of Chili's. We've gotten really intimate with the Chili's menu. There's like it's such a weird spot because currently we live in Egan, which
Egan, Minnesota.
Egan, Minnesota. Shout out to Egan.
Shout out.
But there's not a whole lot of like, oh, here, let's go to these like mom and pa or like small business restaurants. Not really around. It's just mostly chains.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I've eaten at almost every chain that you could possibly eat of. Which back when I lived in St. Paul, it was a lot different. I would go to Tommy's Pizza. I'd go to I'd go to the Scoop Shop. I'd go to there was a place that shut it down. It was right next to my house. doesn't really matter. But there was a lot more like small businesses that you could kind of go to. So I've been feeling real corporate recently. I've been feeling like I've just been consuming a lot of corporate stuff, and that's not just like food. I mean, like
That doesn't feel good.
it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. When you're like, oh, what should I get? And it's like you look at your wall full of coupons and you think to yourself, these coupons don't mean anything. They don't mean it. I'm not getting a deal. Like it's a trick to get me to eat whatever they were going to eat, or just to consume whatever they were going to consume. And like, it's just it's an interesting feeling. Like I said, I feel like simultaneously I'm out on the streets here in Minnesota, you know, doing fighting on the front lines for justice. We have so many events that happen throughout here, marches and things that I'm being a part of. I'm walking through the street. I'm walking down the highway. I'm doing all this stuff that's like so anti that, and then when I get home, the only thing there is to eat is McDonald's, Burger King, and I'm sitting there going, just like, man, I feel like I'm just consuming a lot. And then and it's not just that, like, but media as well, because we're stuck at home for the majority of your day, and you have what? Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus,
and QAnon,
and QAnon. Plus,
of course,
their streaming service.
It's on my favorites on my homepage.
Plus.
When you open up Google, it's like you just click right there. It's a short.
I would probably stream whatever shows that they have just to see that fantasy. That would be so interesting. What does QAnon Plus have? Like, what is their streaming? What shows are there? What are the shows?
Oh my god! Everything like
some knockoff of Hamilton musical.
Yes, it's Robert E. Lee the musical.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. When you said that you look at your wall of coupons and it doesn't mean anything, and I literally heard it like it doesn't mean anything. Like in life.
It doesn't. It doesn't mean anything. That's it's one of those things that you trick yourself, is that you look at it and you go like, yo, all of these products that they're selling me are not even worth. It's not worth what the coupon says. It's barely worth anything. Yeah. They're paying me for the convenience of not doing it for myself, and but the coupons don't mean anything. It's not like they're sacrificing for me to have something. It's just another trick to get me in there, and yet I'm still using them.
Oh my god, I'm getting so mad.
Everybody just want to be that guy, but we're all that guy in the Matrix that was like, I'm gonna eat the steak. Okay, I know it's not real. I taste it and it tastes real, but I know it's not real.
I know it's not real. Oh, but speaking of the Matrix, we're gonna be. I know what I want to talk about. It's a good segue. This is a good segue to the Matrix.
Okay,
one of the things I talk about the Matrix is that guy was the one. People like you could. There's a lot of Matrix theories out there and but I think that guy, the guy who wanted to eat the steak, I think that he was the one. And the reason why I say that is that he got in and out of the Matrix without anybody knowing.
Ooh.
Throughout the entirety of the movie, they show you that in order to get into the Matrix, you have to be plugged in and monitored by somebody.
Right.
He plugged himself into the Matrix, went to dinner with the agent, had a conversation with the agent, and plugged himself and unplugged himself without anybody on this 7x7 ship finding out that he did that until the last moment. To me, that sounds like some magical, mystical, one-person stuff. And what it leads me to think about is how often are our most incredible people, once given success, kind of just transfer back into the system.
Yeah. Say more.
Yep.
There's an episode of Black Mirror where the same actor who I believe it's the same actor who just was in the Judas and the Messiah movie.
Daniel.
I forget his name. British cat. But he was in this movie. He was in the episode of Black Mirror, and the whole episode was people are riding on these pedal bikes, riding on these pedal bikes.
Yes, I remember this.
There's so you think you got talent situation. They live in rooms full of, I think it's my favorite episode of Black Mirror, honestly.
Same.
They're full of constant advertisement, and they can't look away from it or else it punishes them. And he ends up going to the America's Got Talent version of this universe and holds plays a glass to his throat and says he's going to kill himself unless they changed the system. Because the person that he cared about got turned into, essentially, it was like a forced sex worker.
Yeah.
And he ended up winning the show, and then he became a show that people could watch, where he would stick the glass to his neck and talk about how the system is unfair.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
he ends up in a room where he has to watch that, right?
He ends up with a room with a comfortable view,
like
and like he had a bunch, like he could see the trees, and he had food and water, and he could just exist. And so I think to myself, like, how often is that what happens? You know what I mean? Like, you have somebody who really has a vision or a heart for something, and then if they can't kill that person, they'll assimilate them, the system. Like, they can't take them out, which we've seen with a lot of different leaders and things of that nature. I mean, how many times did the FBI try to assimilate Martin Luther King Jr. before they eventually just were like, okay, well, we have to kill him then. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was this thing. They were trying. He would go to the White House. They would try to get him to be a part of the thing. Like, you can be the guy that we are, the black guy, if you wanted. And then after his death, he then somehow, via media and talking heads and stuff like that, they've transformed him into that guy that they wanted him to be before. The passive, non economic interested, let's all be nice to each other Negro that'll tap dance around for everybody. And they've changed that post-mortem. They've changed his entire legacy into that. And it's so interesting as we kind of like as people speak up. Like, for example, this has nothing to do with the media I was talking about, but when Donald Trump was running for his second term, there was Lil Wayne.
Oh yeah.
And he posted that picture of him giving the thumbs up next to Donald Trump and being like, yeah, this guy's platinum plan is super great. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm scared of that money.
Yeah.
I'm scared of that money because I don't know what that check is. There's a number on a check somewhere that I don't know what that number is. And I'm not going to try to say I'm a better person than Lil Wayne for any kind of context. I'm just saying that there is a number that I have yet to see in my life that will make me think maybe I should be a part of the system.
Yeah.
If someone walk up to me and say, like, here's $500 billion. Literally, you will be one of the elite. Everyone you personally know will be fine. Yeah. Just stand there next to the president and give a thumbs up. I'm scared of that number.
You know, and that's on a major grand scale, but even like John and I talk all the time about improv and how, like, now in terms of diversity, they're starting to be like, oh, we want diverse faces to be in executive positions. It's the same thing, right? It's like the same thing. It's like, okay, do I accept
I took the
this
job. They offered it and I took it.
Yeah.
All right. I will be executive director of Huge Theater.
Right. But Huge Theater, here's the difference with Huge Theater. Huge Theater's been doing this forever, you know?
Yeah.
So like it's like, do I accept the job and work it from the inside, right? And I get to move forward in my career, and that's kind of the point, right? But then what does that mean? Like, do I end up again just part of the Matrix?
Yeah. So it's interesting how, like, within the Matrix, it's just like, here's this person with apparently a talent that not a single person in the entire movie franchise has. Like, not even Neo. Neo never even plugged himself in and out of the Matrix on his own, as far as I can remember. And without anybody knowing or without it being a huge deal. And because of that, they targeted that guy and let him live a lavish lifestyle where he doesn't remember the pains of the past. Because that was another thing he said. He says, I don't want to remember. I don't want to remember any of this. I don't remember all the hardships. And it's just like, how often are we in that same position? How often are we trying to not remember by diving into the system? And here we are in this time, you know, and with coronavirus putting us all indoors, you know, there was this moment in the summertime where everything was social justice. It was the hottest button issue. Because it was the only thing that was going to keep you, let you get outside.
Mm-hmm.
Like, real talk. It was one of the only things that would let you get outside. Is that you wanted to go to a march, you wanted to go to a thing, da-da-da-da-da.
It became more important. It became more important than whatever else at that point.
Whatever else had happened at that point. But now that the world has entered the cold months, people don't want to go outside at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the sexy issue that it used to be. We find ourselves like struggling to get people out to care about these sort of things.
Yeah.
And it's because they would rather forget.
Absolutely.
They've done the thing. They did the thing. Like the guy in the Matrix. I did the whole revolution thing, and it's hard. And I'm in a small ship, cramped. Because like once you realize just the effect of how racism has affected this country, and it's like it's the red pill. Like I've been listening to this podcast about seeing whiteness and like all the different legal things that had happened in order to make racism in America like we have it today. And just like once you see that, you can't unsee that. And so it's just like I feel like there's a large population of people who would rather just sit at home and watch the TV and watch the thing and forget. They want the world to come back, not so much because they are super excited about going to work every day. But they want to go back to distraction. To distraction. Go back before they had to listen to everybody, before all these things happened.
And I like that what you're saying, because what you like, especially when you're saying seeing whiteness, like it affects even me, who's a person of color, right? I'm a Latina, and before Cuban American.
Yeah.
Before last year, I mean, I was aware, obviously, but now it's like every single conversation I'm having, I'm thinking about this. And I don't have the experience of a Black woman, for example, which she's been thinking about this her whole life every single day. And I grew up in Miami, which is, I told John all the time, not diverse. It's Cuban. Like, I have been the majority here. And then I did move to a white city. But now it's like in my friendships, especially with my white friends, like it's something that is I took the red pill and now it's either you take it with me or you gotta go. And you
gotta go.
And it's tiring, but at the same time it's relieving, but at the same time it's tiring, but at the same time it's so relieving. So it's like it's so complex. The whole thing is complex.
Being a part of the Matrix is like, would you really want to unsee it? Because it really is, you're being harvested. Like when you take that, you're being harvested for power. That's literally racism, is people being harvested for power by a few. And if you ever watch the Animatrix, it's real. They get a whole lot of like little intricate things. I used to be super into the Matrix for a while, so like like it's just really interesting how many allegories that speaks to. I know a lot of it was like corporate stuff, and again,
what is corporate without white supremacy? Yeah,
and that's another thing that kind of like hits me with that, is that this might be an overgeneralization, and I'm not trying to be rude, and I'd be happy to be wrong, and please correct me.
That's okay. We accept generalizations here just to get the idea and opinion.
It's our bread and butter.
Out.
Someone hit me. Like, feel free to hit me if I say this and I'm out of pocket. But so many white science fiction writers and authors and screenwriters tend to fear the concept of being assimilated into some corporate structure that only wants them for their production, while completely ignoring the plight of Black and brown people.
Yeah.
That exact thing happened to for real. Like a group of technologically advanced, and I say that with quotes, technologically advanced people showed up, took you, forced you into this situation where you're just a cog in a machine, literally just a cog in a machine, used to produce for them, and and took away your individuality, took away your name, gave you what essentially was a nonsensical phrase as your name. It was the same as putting a barcode on you. I mean, real talk. Like, if someone, like, you watch Roots, you know what I mean? Like, Kunta Kinte was his name. Toby didn't mean anything to him. It literally was just this nonsensical thing that they were saying that you're now this. You're now Unit 56783. And then they'd be like, no, I'm Jonathan, leader of the revolution. Like, it's so much of that. And the fact that so many people will watch Terminator, or like, and they'll praise John Connor, or they'll praise all these people that are fighting against this seemingly cold, logical, like calculated oppression and domination, and the strong white, square-jawed, brown-haired so-and-so is gonna come up and fight for all the people. But then at the same time, don't recognize that in the real world.
In history.
How many history? Like I said, like this last year, 2020, like you can't watch the Hunger Games and then turn around and tell these kids to go home. Right. Like you can't watch Star Wars and be like, you'd be sitting here like, man, those rebels should really learn to talk better. They blew up the Death Star. Like they blew, and people were working there. Like it's not like when the 3rd precinct burned down here in Minneapolis. No one was inside. Like no one was inside. They burned down a symbol. But like you're watching Star Wars, and they blew up a space station. Those people are all dead, and they're the heroes of that story. And
burn it down.
And I'm not trying to say that people should be more violent. What I'm trying to say is that, and it's like, well, that's different because it's fiction. I'm like, but is it different to you if you're not engaging with it? If you don't have any black friends, you don't live in a black neighborhood, how is that any different than watching this thing on the TV?
And where do you think fiction comes from? It comes from our brains that process our real life, the real world.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a break here. We got to go to commercial.
Oh, Lord.
Commercial.
All right.
Oh, Lord.
Okay.
Here it goes.
You guys got to help me with this commercial.
Okay.
Hi, I'm white guy with square jaw brown hair, superhero at large. I've been known to rescue any kind of people in any kind of incident, like last week.
Last week, there was a guy on the other side of town, and he had fallen down, and I ran all the way there with my amazing super speed and strength, and picked him up and got him right over to the hospital. Unfortunately, he did not have any sort of healthcare situation, so we just kind of left him there. But
sign here, please.
I saved him. So with brown-haired square jaw industries.
We now go back to your regular programming.
Yeah. Oh, we're coming back. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, that was great. Because the thing I remember I said when you asked me what I want to talk about, I said like, oh, I want to talk about media and representation in media and how things are kind of like skewed around racial lines. I really think that it's true. For my biggest example recently was the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix. It's bad. First of all, it's bad. And I have a tough time with people who are like, oh, it was this great movie. And
everybody loved it. I haven't watched it because I know that it was the mental. Here's why I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it because people were talking about how, oh my gosh, it's such a representation of mental illness. And And I just said to myself, having so much, been around so much mental illness in my immediate family, I just felt like if I watch this movie, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to get mad at some bullshit that they did. Like, something's going to be incorrect and annoying, and I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, same, because, same, I'm not, like, my family, my mom has schizophrenia. Yeah. I'm not trying to watch a, Joker movie and be like, oh, it was so cathartic.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you. My everyday life is cathartic. I appreciate it.
Exactly right. I don't need to see that. One of the things I was, when I watched that movie, I think it reminded me something that I heard way back in my other day when I was like going to church and stuff. But they said that the devil is in the 80%. The devil is in the 80%. He's not in the 0%. The devil's in the 80%. So it'll be like, oh, this thing is 80% true. That thing is 80% true. That thing is 80% right. But because it's mostly right, people just ignore that 20%. And the thing is that 20% compounds over time.
Yeah.
So when they said, "Oh, this is a depiction of mental illness," and it's great, and I remember thinking, and they would even say in the movie, there's a part in the movie where he is talking to a state, apparently, again, they don't really talk about it, apparently a state-run mental health advocate, his sponsor, his counselor, or whatever, and you can see that she's so swamped with work that she doesn't really pay attention to him while he's speaking, and he's like, "Oh, you're not really listening to me." That's a thing that happens, but then they take that nugget of truth, and then they expand it across the whole thing. When your reality is that that's not what this movie is about. That's not what this movie is talking about. They're not saying, "Hey, let's take an in-depth dive of the perils of state-run mental health and overall concept of how mental health is dealt with in this country." That's not what they're talking about. They're making a movie about a character who is murdering people, and that's what it is. That's what the movie is about. They have a conversation. They have a piece of it, and that's what's frustrating to me. That's what's frustrating to me.
I came to watch the slaughter, the carnage. I came to NASCAR to see maybe a car hit a wall. I didn't come to learn tidbits about, how to be a better neighbor.
But they'll use it. They'll use it, though. They'll use it to justify the entire movie. And it's just that's not real. That's not really happening. And in that movie, in the Joker movie, especially, I remember, here we are, it's 2019, I want to say. 2018? It's either 2019 or 2019. The scene starts with the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix character, getting beat up by a bunch of brown kids on the street.
No, it does.
It does.
Seriously?
It does. They beat him up, and they just do it to do it. They just do it because they just beat him up. And now to say that
why don't we follow those kids to where they're
going? And they're like, how they beat him up, and he's like, "Oh, he's so sad." And it's just I remember thinking to myself, now I'm a big DC fan. You see on my shirt I got Harley Quinn. I'm a big Batman-esque fan. I don't like to say I'm a I don't like to say I'm a Batman fan. I like the universe in which Batman resides in. That's another conversation.
Okay,
but
that's different. All right.
It is very whitewashed. So there was a part of me that was like, you know what? If you were in a lower income area, because of racism, most of the people there are going to be black and brown. And so the majority of people that would do crime to you would also be black and brown. So it's just not that black and brown people are inherently more violent. It's just that if you're in an area where it's all one person and any of those people want to do crime, it's going to more likely be this kind of person. So in my head, I'm sitting here going okay, sure. But then, sure, the only people that happen to do damage to this dude at the time were black and brown. Okay.
And are they going into the story of where they are and
but
why
that's the
they're
thing.
there?
No, they don't.
That's the 20%.
Yeah, they just talk about beautiful. The thing. Yes, would he get?
Yeah.
Could he have gotten beat up by a group of brown people and it had been fine? Yes. Does every movie need to talk about the systematic oppression of the people that are in the background of this movie? No, but. The fact that the movie tries to justify how this character then later on goes on a murder spree because people are mean to him is so ridiculous, especially when you think about historically, the people who have been disenfranchised, beat, taken aback, stripped of their humanity, all that stuff. There is no history of that being reciprocated onto the white people who have done that.
And if there's any semblance of anger or if there's any semblance of violence from people that have been oppressed, then all of a sudden, it's oh, well, they're lower class.
What the fuck do you mean, Elise?
Yeah.
What do you say?
The Joker is this criminal mastermind. And he's this tortured artist, and and look at him. He's a person. They gave Joaquin Phoenix the Oscar. They gave him all. They showered this movie with praise because look how far he's fallen.
Yeah. And even in his speech, he couldn't even accept the award. I remember he was like, honestly, y'all. Yeah, because he's
this movie is just. They treated him look how every white. Generalization, please catch me if I'm wrong, but it's many white centered movies like this are the narrative is look how far they've fallen because they're inherently this high. And they've fallen even into the depths of madness and because why? Because they shouldn't have bad stuff happen to them. Like, because white people should be protected, inherently protected. And
I'm applying this right now. Like, everything you're saying is kind of coming together in pieces. The word that's coming to me is that sensationalization.
Beautiful.
It's thank you. That was really difficult to say. It's like we're sensationalizing.
There you go.
Yeah, that's great.
All of these characters, right? These white characters, and it becomes this sensation, and everybody becomes obsessed. And then that's how Donald Trump wins an election, right? It's like this.
Facts.
We're sensationalizing everything.
American Psycho.
Psycho, another great one.
Right. And then we're surprised when white domestic terrorists go and shoot schools up.
Yeah, and it's always a tragedy that these people had been bullied, or that these people have been beaten, or these people have been sad, or that's when we start dealing with like, oh well, we need to have a mental health conversation in this country, and at the same time you watch how many Batman movies have been out. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Batman specifically because Batman the character. It's like I'm not discounting trauma. Trauma is real. But again, his entire concept was that because he watched his parents murdered in front of him, he is then justified in beating the ever-loving hell out of anybody who he decides is bad. And that's the police.
That's exactly what police.
I read this thing, and I'm so sorry if you were watching this or listening to this and you wrote this and I forgot your name, but it was on Twitter and I really loved it. And he said that I don't want my Batman noir. I want my Batman George Clooney. I want my Batman Val Kilmer dealing with threats that police couldn't normally handle. I want giant rubber duckies in the street. I want huge balloons filled with super secret gas that turns you into a crazy clown and he has to come up with an antidote for it. I don't want my Batman flying into a lower income neighborhood and punching a gang member's teeth out, and his justification is that cops aren't doing what they need to do, because that implies that the cops, there would be more crime or less crime if cops were allowed to beat people up with impunity.
That's the message. It's that's what I hear. It's shouting at me when Batman's just like, oh yeah, you better get out of here, punk. And he's just like, haymaker. And I was like,
you saw that the new clip from the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson in it, and there's a group of gang, Latino gang, like at least from what it looked like when I saw it, a group of Latino young men, and he comes up to one of them, and one of them is like, hey, get out of our area, and then Batman's like, and he goes to hit Batman, and Batman does like some kind of ninja move, puts him on the ground, and then just starts beating him. And not like beating him to knock him out, but like just beating him and looking up at the rest of the people and beating him. And I remember saying to myself, I remember looking at that going like, that was so much. And the idea that he's the hero, it throws me because he has every advantage to get over his trauma, money and time and
privilege,
whiteness,
for sure,
and maleness. Like male dealing with their mental health is actually an issue because we've been socialized to not deal with the things that we are sad about.
I was gonna talk about that next, because as a woman, I was never into superhero movies because I could not stand the way that the depiction, like, we again sensationalized. Wow, it finally came out of me easily. We again sensationalized we're not able to access him emotionally, and he does whatever he wants, and we're gonna think that he's so sexy and beautiful and wonderful because he is the perfect depiction of a man that society thinks is a man.
And that's why it's so frustrating, because he has all this, he has all the gifts, all the tools, and he goes around the world learning all sorts of ways that he can get his rage out without just dealing with the rage that he can. One therapist,
therapy, Batman.
One therapist could have. He has billions of dollars. One therapist, and it's like, what what frustrates me is that here's Batman beating up low-income people and people with mental illness. We could talk about supervillains all day, but one of the things that Batman always talks about is like his villains are, he puts them in Arkham Asylum. They're criminally insane, even though I would argue that most of them aren't. Like, I would argue that Poison Ivy is not criminally insane. She is a different species of humanoid beings. She treats plants as if they were people, because to her, they are. She can hear them. She can set, like, that's not insanity, because it's true. Like, she can actually tell them to move left, and they'll move left. Like, that's not insanity at that point. Insanity would be she thinks she's talking to plants, and they're not responding to their. Yeah, but she is, like, and so, but he beats her up all the same, and.
He beats her up too?
Yeah, he beats her up. He beats up everybody.
What a hero.
God,
what
a hero. What an equal opportunity.
The plant woman?
I think that Batman overall is like, and I understand, like, you know, it's a comic book, and it's not like I don't like Batman ever. Like, I've never enjoyed a Batman comic or never enjoyed, but the comics that I enjoy are when where he's fighting something that is clearly above what could be handled by good, honest police work. Like, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, he should be there on the front lines. If there's about to be a terrorist attack like 9/11, if
Stop
Batman
that.
can somehow figure out a way to stop that.
I like Batman in the Justice League, where they're fighting a giant alien robot, and Batman's like, hey, have we thought about it in a more tactical way? Or here, I'm gonna
have we thought about it in a more oppressive, some sort of systematic?
He'll jump in.
You know what always works? Oppression.
Yeah, he'll jump in. And how isn't it interesting how all of the Robins have been white?
Of course.
Like, even though he's Gotham is an inner city neighborhood, and all this stuff. In this version, every other kid, because it shows a trickle down of how that kind of oppression works. I have all this stuff, all this opportunity. I'm angry at something that happened to me, so I'm going to pass that on to the next person. And the next white kid does the same thing, and the next white kid does, and it's a father figure, which is kind of how it is. And it's transferred from father to son, but it's also translated from generation to generation. So
absolutely,
I'm not a huge, like I said, I like DC Universe, and I like Gotham as a concept, and I like the universe in which Batman resides, but I'm not a huge fan of Batman because
Batman sucks,
because he's just kind of like that dude, and
we're beefing with Elise and John's show is now beefing with Batman.
Absolutely.
But no, that's real though. Superman's dope.
Get in here.
Superman's dope.
Yeah.
And a reason why people don't like Superman is because again, this might be overgeneralization. No.
Why?
But like the idea of inherent worth is frustrating for white people.
It is.
It's frustrating for white people. The idea of inherent worth is frustrating for white people to understand.
How dare you come up
and
in
just
here?
be good,
all right?
And just be good.
Yes, illuminating joy from within. Get that out of here. How dare you?
Where is your trauma, and why aren't you succumbing to it?
Yes. Ignoring the genocide that Superman has survived, and saying that he doesn't have any trauma because he's not hurting other people. Because he's not he is hurting people. He punches people, but like because he is not brooding and angry and dark, the genocide of his entire people is somehow. And I say genocide, I mean like no one killed the Kryptonians, though their culture kind of like let them not leave when they were told to leave. But like the death of his entire people, as far as he knew it, was not enough trauma for him.
Right.
And
slavery was so long ago.
Exactly.
Get over it.
Well, here's the thing. This also has to do with, I think, again, like I'm having such a
sensationalization.
Such a sensational time right now, just processing, just listening to this, because I don't watch any of these superhero movies and all of that stuff, but I'm very intrigued just listening to you all talk about it and listening to it from a woman's perspective. Because I hear what you're saying about Superman now, and it makes me think of how women, if if there's any point where we have to express pain, or people who identify as women, I should say, where we have to express pain, or where we are feeling depressed, for example, if we're not on the floor crying for people to, like, we're not performing, right, our sadness or our depression or our negative feelings, then they don't exist.
That's so real, though. So
it's really cool, like, just to hear you giving me that kind of comparison.
Yeah, it could be fit to scale.
Yeah.
Find a group that's been oppressed.
Right.
And the same kind of mentality applies.
And that's
how dare you.
It's so frustrating. So because when we look at these characters, it's like a good example of a Venn diagram of what you just said and what we've been talking about is the Captain Marvel movie. I didn't like the movie as Captain Marvel the movie, but I really enjoyed Captain Marvel the character. And because she was just existing like any other male character would. She was confident, cocky about the things that she was cocky about. She was funny. Like, she didn't actually need a whole lot of help. Like, it was just like she's just existing. But people were like, she's boring and she's da-da-da-da, and where's this and where's that? And I was like, but that was Star-Lord. That was every other character that we watched. Like, that was it was Iron Man in the first Iron Man. Like, she did all the things. Yeah. She ticked all the boxes for me. I enjoyed her character. I wish they did more with her. I wish the movie overall was more fit to that style of things. Yeah. I felt like they kept shying away from it because I was like, no, give her the full range. But because because A, the nerd culture is kind of toxic, and B, and like just like movie culture is also kind of toxic in some ways. It was like just there's this anger, this rhetoric out there, and I was like, she's so bad at da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yo, I really enjoyed Captain Marvel, the character. When she showed up in the later Avengers movies, I was very happy. I'm excited to see more of her in more things. But yeah, like the idea of that women have to show some sort of Anne Hathaway levels of crying to camera in order to be either interesting or being taken seriously.
I can't tell you the number of roles that I've auditioned for, that I've been invited to audition for. Like, hey, come do this audition. Like, so many of them where the note is always make her warmer. And I'm like, bitch, I don't know. I can't do warm.
Warm?
So I'm like,
fix the thermostat in this fucking audition room. How about that?
What would you like me? Like, what does warm look like? I'm feeling pain. I'm giving you what I feel like pain looks like through my artistic expression. Yeah. Go get somebody else.
Get someone else warm. Like,
and they have every time. I should clarify. They have every time.
Warm usually just means more. Warm means more vulnerable to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I need you to be I don't know, like tiny, small. Yeah. I need you to make me feel like I am a giant. Yeah. And I'm so strong, and you're amazed at that. And I need you to feel like you can't do anything ever for yourself. I need to feel that about you, even though it's not true.
It's the form of media that you have to portray it in this way. And another good example, and we talked about it a little bit before the camera started rolling or whatever. The new Cruella trailer for this Cruella.
Okay, let's get into this because I want to hear about this. I have not seen the trailer.
How do you want to do it? Do you want us to just wait or watch it first?
Watch the trailer.
Okay, let's watch the trailer. We're gonna cut the audio for a second, and then John and I are gonna watch.
All right.
And we're back.
I honestly don't know how to feel about it.
Tell us what you think, nerd.
I need to stand up and stretch after that fucking. Here we go. Wow.
So this is what when I first saw the things, I was like, oh, what is this? And my first thought, and I made mention of this on Twitter. I said, do you think what we need right now is a movie where a rich white person was always misunderstood? And the rich white society that she wanted to be a part of didn't accept her, and then she decided to be like apparently somehow unhinged, and like
again we're sensationalizing
mental illness as if that's what it is. And I was just like, is that really what we need? Did someone ever look at the story of the 101 Dalmatians, the rich woman who attacked this lower middle class family and tried to kill their pets?
Let's make a movie about her.
Well, what if she was being treated unfairly? Well, what if she was bad? What if they weren't letting her play in their club? Maybe that's why she was the way she was. And I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I don't need to know that. Like, who is this for? Why can't she just be bad?
It's for the people who have been taught to sensationalize anything that comes from a historical Disney thing. So now it's like everybody that grew up on 101 Dalmatians is going to be like, oh my gosh, there's a movie about Cruella de Vil. I used to love that when I was a kid. La 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 la. And then now we're just going to continue doing that forward. But let me tell you something. I did a lot of shit as a kid that doesn't serve me now as an adult.
Yeah. It's like, what is this? What is that? What do we gain from this? And you can say, well, it's just like, who knows what it's going to be? Like, and you know what? Maybe it's going to be a movie about how she was always bad and that she just happened to get away with it. And isn't that a problem? And if that's the story, that's great.
Hopeful.
If that's great. But the idea for me to be like, you've not only turned being criminal and violent into somehow girl boss energy, which I don't agree with. And somehow being like, to even insinuate that this is because she wasn't understood. Because she said, I always saw the world different from most people, and that was they didn't like that. And it's just like, no, it's this myth of the middle ground. It's this myth of the middle ground that is bled into all of our entertainment. Is that you're not seeing the world differently. You're seeing the world poorly. You're seeing the world wrong. You are going to kill these dogs. 101 of them. Like 101 of them that didn't belong to you. And you were going to kill them because you wanted to make coats. Because you wanted to make coats. And you're not seeing the world differently than other people. You're seeing the world poorly, and it's like there are these people who think that somehow is valid.
They think it's valid, and let's be real. People keep on attacking these big industries like oil. Hollywood just as dangerous. They're taking and repackaging all of these things under the same tired narrative. It's capitalism. It's exploitation. It's at the expense though of Cruella or whoever the white. The villain who just isn't understood.
It's like the Joker is a bad guy. Cruella is a bad person. Both of these people were bad people. We don't need a movie being like, well, what if they were bullied? It's like, okay. Like,
But Nur-D, look at all the pyro.
Yeah, look at he has a stage. It says she had a red dress. She walked into a party and was like, look at me. I'm not subscribing to your color norms. And
you could buy it at Sephora.
Yeah, it's like it was very. As I said, it was like it was packaging apologetics for rich white people in the culture of the time, which is unfortunately like this weird girl boss energy thing. Like I said, that's what it was giving me. Like, hey, it's cool to be like this capitalist murderer, as long as you're trendy about it, and it's like. That's so
trendy.
Uncool.
That's it right there.
That's so uncool. It's like, what's next? Clayton, the movie where that guy from Tarzan who wanted to kill all those gorillas. We're gonna find out that he was. I don't know. He was pushed down. His dad was mean to him, and that's why he wants to kill all these gorillas. And maybe these gorillas had it coming. Like that's kind of that's kind of the energy I'm getting. Well, maybe these Dalmatians had it coming. What did people do to make her this way? And I'm just like, what does that mean? What does that mean? She's so sad because people didn't let her do her thing. And if we just let people do the thing they wanted to do, maybe they won't be murderers? That's not how that works. Because every time I see that as a black person, I'm just like, you enslaved people. They didn't turn into super villains.
Y'all made this a white woman tears
movie.
I
was just like, what is that? It's just like, how many people of color in the fashion industry we've been completely overlooked and thought that they were less than, and told that their images weren't good, and most of them female identifying, and then it's just like, and none of those people ever turned into these murdering arsonist people. Like it is so frustrating for me to see another movie where it's just like, just give white people what they want and they won't kill you.
True.
Absolutely. That is the message. Give us your materials, give us your goods, your resources, and you'll live.
That's the kind of, and that's the media that we're consuming so often, is that we want to talk about the past, and we want to talk about supremacy or talk about systematic oppression, but we don't want to actually stand the heat of that. It's like, you want cookies, but because you don't want to put it through the heat of the oven, you just eat cookie dough. And a little bit of cookie dough isn't going to kill you, but if all you eat is cookie dough, you're going to get sick. And that's where I feel like a lot of black and brown people are at this point, is that like, you keep giving us cookie dough and expecting it to be all good and all sweet over here. And it's like, no.
So all of this conversation is making me think about the reason why now I feel so, at least so many of us in terms of like BIPOC and BIMPOC, we feel so ready. We were always ready, but we feel even now, I think, more drawn to creating what things that should be created and not cookie dough, to baking actual cookies.
Yeah.
So I know that was an inspiration for this show.
Yeah. We have our names in the show because A, that is what people do in showbiz, whatever. But B, we really just wanted us to just have our names and that be enough. Like, how many white people have that, and that's enough?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be this clever thing. You don't have to not trick. You don't have to try and like prove that it's worth listening to.
We're not sensationalizing it.
Yeah. It's just it is worth listening to, just because, hey, we have something inherent worth. We have something to offer you. You should listen to it.
We're super people.
Super people.
Yeah. But that's not what our commercial's like. Our commercial for the show is like, Elise is on a tiny boat coming over from Cuba to America, recording the podcast. John traveling through the Atlantic Ocean from Africa.
The sun is burning their skin.
From Africa. On a boat.
One drip of sweat slowly
man.
comes down their face.
We've got a coconut apparatus that allows them to access the Wi-Fi based on nothing but just a dream and some cocoa butter.
Some cocoa butter, a tinfoil hat, and the dream. And that's the Elise and John show. Donate to the Elise and John show if you want this program. We got to make that fake promo. That's good.
So that makes me wonder, how is this inspiring you? Like, what is it doing for you artistically now? Because we've talked about.
We saw your TED Talk.
Oh gosh, your TED Talk.
We love that.
Thank you.
Your TED Talk.
Thank you very much.
I actually have a specific question about your TED Talk. But
for those that haven't saw it, stop this right now. Go watch the TED Talk on YouTube.
I will put the link
we'll
up.
link it.
Hit me with your question. I'm curious.
Well, I have two questions that I want to give you. So the first one was what I was just thinking about was like, how is this inspiring you artistically?
I think it's inspired me in multiple ways. One is like, when I was doing music at the beginning, even if it wasn't conscious, there was like this thing about like, hey, don't step outside of your lane. Like, don't step outside of your lane. You are a fun, like, pop culture, like that's what you'll talk about, and that's where you're gonna make your money, and blah blah. Yeah, which is fun and great. But then I said to myself, like, yo, I tell this story, and because it really encapsulates like what I was feeling and how it changed my art. Was I was in the parking lot of this Kmart at a first aid station during the uprising as it was happening, and there was a first aid station, so people were hurt and we're trying to help them out, and the police came through, and this day we were told, this is the rumor, that this was like day 3 actually of like the harshest week of the uprising, and we were told that the police were using live rounds now. Like they were using live rounds. It wasn't non-lethal at this point. It was going to be bullets. Like they were done. And these we saw this line of cops come through. They started shooting at the first aid station. So people are trying to run, but a lot of people are injured. They can't move. They can't run. They can't do anything.
Can you give us the date for this? What's the exact date?
This was I want to say it was May 27th.
2020.
2020.
So less than 1 year ago, friends.
Yes, yeah. And
not 30 years ago, not 200 years ago.
This was just a little bit ago.
Yeah.
And they were shooting at, and a bunch of nurses walked up in front of the area, put their hands up, and they were like, hey, like, stop, like, don't shoot. Like, we have injured over here. We have nurses. We have medics. We have people who are just trying to help people. Like, we're not protesting. Like, we're not even over there. Like, we're over here so people don't get hurt.
This is triage.
Yeah, and they kept shooting at them. So I remember, like, and they're just getting hit. And I remember this old woman, this old nurse. She couldn't have been younger than 60. She's up there, white nurse, mind you, because that's one of the things we said. Like, white people get up in front, like, so they they know. And I remember seeing the something ricochet real close to her feet, and I remember thinking to myself, okay. And I told her, like, hey, like, come back. Like, I don't want to see you hurt. Like, come back, help people get out of there. And I remember I walked up and I had my hands up and I was like, I was louder. I was like, hey, we're trying to get out of here, but shooting isn't helping. Like, arrest us, arrest all of us, fine, but stop shooting at people who can't leave you.
Yeah.
And I got hit with a non-lethal round in my hip. But in my head, I'd never been shot before by anything other than a Nerf dart. And it hurt like a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, oh, I'm dead. This is the live rounds they were talking about. I'm dead. I just died here in this parking lot. And in that second of time where I was like, oh, this is me dead. This is me being dead. I thought, did I say everything that I wanted to say? Have I said everything that I wanted to say? I've said a lot of stuff that I liked, but have I said everything that I feel like I've been put on this planet to say? And I realized that the answer was no. Like, if I died right now, people wouldn't, like, yeah, they might know that I was out here fighting for these people and stuff like that, but they won't know everything. Or at the very least, my art won't reflect that. If you put Nur-D from beginning to end, my catalog won't really talk about this.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that I wasn't in fact shot and that I could run, and I remember getting this injured man onto an office chair that someone had found and wheeling him into a car to get him to the hospital, I realized that I was going to have to change how I speak in my art. And so
it was time to bake some cookies.
It was time to bake some cookies.
Hey,
exactly. I can have just as much fun, and I have. My albums, 38th and Chicago Avenue, I had so much fun creating them. I had so much fun getting it, but they weren't just sugar. They were about stuff. And there's nothing wrong with having sugar. That's fine. It's a part of who I am too. But it's just like I now know that I'm never going to not talk about something because I'm afraid that people might not want to hear it coming from me. It's like,
have a negative effect on your safety, on your
I'm just
security.
Gonna, Exactly. I'm just going to talk about what I need to talk about, and if nobody wants to hear me ever again, then that's the price it pays to have a strong opinion about Black liberation, people of color being considered human, like that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's the price of the red pill.
It's the price of the red pill. Exactly right.
Y'all, if you're listening, this is every Black man I can speak to specific. I know women, but I can speak to every Black man in America at some point has this, and it happens over and over too. This isn't just like one time it happens and all of a sudden Nur-D's like, okay, now this is a reoccurring. It's just like, you get hit again. You go, man, fuck that.
I have.
Another reason why They just stormed the Capitol. Man, fuck that. I'm definitely doing whatever. I gotta do whatever I'm doing because they are doing that, and we all black men are coming from such different points. So the way that hits us, meaning we can't unsee that. We can't. Nur-D can't undo that moment when he got shot. That is irrevocable. You can't go back from that ever. And it would be weird, and you wouldn't. It would be, you know what I mean? It would just kill you more if you went back to trying to be before getting shot. And the people around you, here's the other part. Nobody talks about the people in your lives, our relationships, or our girlfriends, or friends, or siblings. That's the other part. Like the conversations we have at night, or our family, our mothers, right? And they got to hear that message. That's the other part to the story. So it's not just Nur-D got shot, and now you're going to respond to it. It's the people in Nur-D's lives that, like, also are dealing like, not my Nur-D. Yeah. Who they shot my Nur-D?
But even if I don't know him, like right now, he just told me this story. I can't unhear that story. I can't unhear him telling me, you can't afford not to say it. So now, whoever listens to this has the responsibility to not unhear this.
Yeah.
Right?
You can hide from it if you want to, but it's not going to change the fact that it happened. You can go back into the Matrix and eat your steak, and that's if that's what you want to do. But the reality is that make you forget part of it isn't possible.
Right.
It'll be a conscious choice of yours.
Yeah.
And so you just have to live with that.
Yeah.
But that's
it's a decision.
Yeah. So that was the answer to your first question.
That's very inspiring and unfortunately inspiring, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things like you wish that didn't happen. Like I wish I would have much rather that have not happened. Like I wish, but it's like it did happen.
Can I ask you just to add to that part, like, because I know I have an all black improv group and it's so much fun. But after Jamar Clark, a black man in Minneapolis, was shot by the police, we had a show maybe like 5 days before after he was shot, and up until that point, we didn't really know how to do. I don't even know what you call it. We didn't know how to do a show when a black man was just murdered and video.
Yeah,
like, it was like one of the first video ones coming out, so it just hits differently. And I think artistically, we hit that same place, and maybe you can kind of speak to this too. You look up and you're like, I don't know what the audiences are looking for. I'm pretty sure I know, but at the end of the day, they're about to get me processing how I'm feeling as the show. And
that's it. That's all you get.
That's what I mean. If they came for something else, honestly, I'm sorry, in the fact that maybe it could be misleading, but I don't feel bad. But this is the show. It's going to be where we're at, how we feel, how I feel, and you're going to. This is the show. I don't know what else to tell you, and this is what it will be indefinitely.
I think people need to remember that if you're gonna, put BLM in your top bio, if you're gonna talk about all this stuff, if you're gonna talk about how you're out for marginalized communities and you ride and all that stuff, then that just means sometimes you're not getting the entertainment that you want to get that day. You might have to learn to consume media that is not for your enjoyment solely. I can't tell you how many friends, how many people that I thought were cool with me were fine with me riding 38th and Chicago Avenue and listening to it and jamming along in their car, but weren't okay with me saying that same stuff to employers or to people that I know, or talking to them or calling them out about the stuff that's happening around them. They're fine with it happening over there, where they can consume it and pause it and go to the bathroom or whatever. But when it affects their lives, all of a sudden it becomes this whole thing. And I told a lot of people, like, some of our white friends need to realize that they don't want white supremacy to be dismantled. They want their friends
and black
friends.
and
black friends. They want their friends to not be sad. But that's not the same thing as wanting white supremacy to be dismantled. Some men don't want sexism to be dismantled. They want the women in their lives to not be sad. But that's different. Because if white supremacy was completely dismantled, a lot of things that white people enjoy would be gone. And these things aren't necessarily negative things in and of themselves, but they would have to be gone in order to replace them with things that are better for people. So it's just like, I think a lot of white people are struggling with that right now, is when like even the very concept of something like reparations will split the room of people who would normally take, who would say that they would take a bullet for you. If you told them that, hey, every person of color is going to get $50,000 a year for the rest of their lives, and you don't get it at all, that will split.
What? I don't understand.
Your white friends would have some issues with that sometimes. They might not even realize that that's what they're having issue with. All that to say is some stuff I have. That's white friends aren't necessarily all for things being changed. But I do believe that so many of them genuinely don't want you to be sad. Listening to, like, when I say like they don't want you to be sad, and
they don't want to be the person to make you sad.
They genuinely don't want that. They genuinely don't want that. If they could snap their fingers and make sure you were and make you happy and healthy and whole, and the police would never harass you or all the things, I believe they push that button. I genuinely believe that because I have white friends who are like that. I have white friends who they care about me. They care about me and they want me to be okay, but they have never marched with me. They have never written their senator. They have never written their congressperson. They have never done that. And they'll still vote against the black and brown people's self-interest. But they honestly and truly don't want me, Matt, to be sad. Right. And so that's what we have to realize, is that, like, a lot of people don't want white supremacy to be over. They just don't want you to be sad.
Facts. And every person of color knows that white person in their lives.
So anyway, what was your second question? I feel like we ran all the way off.
Yeah, my second question, and
we go off the highway sometimes. I love it.
I love it. In your TED Talk, which I will reiterate that I loved, in your TED Talk, you used comedy in some points. And this is obviously something that John and I work in, is comedy. And John even just mentioned now how he has had shows where he's like, today I'm not interested in making an effort to make you laugh. I'm just going to do whatever comes out of me today. So comedy in terms of like these subjects that are that can be heavy for people of color and heavy for BIPOC folk, and using comedy and then using that comedy in front of white audiences, because I don't know if this was the editing of your TED Talk and the way that they edited sounds and stuff. But the first thing that one of the first moments that I realized that there was an energy shift was when you were making jokes or you were using humor to express pain or to express something difficult. There was this moment of like, should we be laughing? Right?
Oh, white people were like,
yeah. And I noticed that when they were showing the audience, which I imagine were other TED Talkers because of the pandemic, they were all mostly white. Is that accurate to say from what I saw?
Yep, actually almost all white people. I did that on purpose.
Gotcha. And so
same with the Cruella de Vil trailer. There's only one black woman.
Yeah. They did that on purpose too, but that's a different reason.
Who was going to take a picture? She was like, oh, it's Cruella. I should take a picture of her.
Yes. Oh, how beautiful.
Magical Negro.
Thank you. So I want to know what your thoughts are on comedy when it comes to this kind of stuff, because I felt that moment where I was like, they're not laughing. And why aren't they laughing? Is it because they're like, oh, what, should I be laughing at this? Or like, and
what level of white guilt is happening in this space? And how are you having to make choices while that happens? I'm an addict.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's that part, and then there's also like, again, we're using comedy for something difficult, and we're not crying about it, right? We're instead, or at least not in this very moment. Yeah. Instead, we're using comedy. So I just want to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Using comedy has always been like, I said in my TED Talk, I was like, entertainment was how I defended myself.
Sure.
I mean,
most comedians.
Like you ask any comedian in any form of comedy, usually they'll tell you like, that was my defense. Like I
for real, I should be a Crip right now.
Yeah, I'm not like that was funny.
Comedy
I was walking around and making laugh.
They let me
Yeah, like making people laugh that's how I got out. And so
Yeah.
that's so much of it. First off, so much
Mhm.
of it. I've also found, and I heard this from a friend in college, and I've stuck with it. His name was Hayden Levin. Shout out to Hayden Levin. But
Shout out Hayden.
yeah, he told me something because he was also very similar. He was a white kid, but he was his own. He had his own struggles to get through to people with his own life. And what he said is like, if you can make people laugh, it is immediately disarming.
Yeah.
You can't be sad. Not sad. You can't be guarded and laughing at the same time. You can do one or the other.
Facts.
You can't be guarded and laughing at the same time.
Yeah,
Try
like
it.
you
Try
can be guarded,
Try
like
it.
you could and genuine laughing. Obviously, like just fake
Right.
laugh, like ha ha ha, like
Right.
when like
Right.
you know, like my fiance will tell me like she's like walking down the street or something, and a guy like will accost her, like the ha ha ha. That's not what I'm talking about. Like that's very different. But we're talking about a genuine laugh.
The relief that says, "Hey, it's
Where
safe
you
here.
feel
There's
safe
no
to release.
there's no bears in the woods.
You
We're
can't
good, guys."
you can't do that and be guarded at the same time.
Yeah.
So humor is a great way to cut through a lot of that tension. Now, where it comes to racial humor or humor that involves race or humor that specifically involves what white people have done to me,
Yeah.
you know, I laugh at it because it's something that I'm so used to that like sometimes there's levels. Any person of color will tell you there's levels, like the spices at freaking at your favorite wing spot. Like you
That's
have
right.
sweet
5 peppers.
Yeah, you have sweet.
That's
you
right.
have dry rubs, kind of this
Yeah.
way, and then you have that. There's a level of racism that's like,
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Chili's.
I don't want
Chili.
that.
Yes,
Chili's.
Chili's.
We hate Chili's.
Yeah, I don't want that. Like, ooh, and then there's a level above that where you're like, yo, I've never even seen that, and I would like, I've never seen anyone get that. That's wild. There is a level, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I've never seen a KKK person in the flesh come to me and be like, "Hey, you know, da 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 da, get off my lawn." I've never had a cross burned on my lawn. That's that spicy level that I see on the menu.
Like, oh, no one's
like,
ever ordered that.
Oh my gosh, I know it exists. It's there, so people have had that, but I've never seen anybody do that personally. But I've seen some pretty spicy stuff. But when you get to the lower end of stuff, it doesn't affect me the same way. You know what I mean? It's annoying, but it's not like, oh, this is like, oh my God, I'm going to go home and cry. For white people, maybe like in real life, that level of spice is pretty much a lot for them. So even the little bits of things, even the little bit stuff,
ketchup,
it's like,
is this ketchup?
Ketchup has sugar in it. I want no spice.
Yeah, how can you eat this? How can you eat this? It's so spicy. How can you eat this? How can you consume this willingly? How can you laugh about this? And how can you do that? This is so horrid.
So
and
good.
I like, it's one of the reasons, I'm going to get real serious with you. One of my friends asked me, why is your therapist, because why is my therapist, why is your therapist white? Why don't you go see a black therapist? Because they would understand you. And I understand that reasoning, and a lot of people do that, and I think that's great. But I said, when I tell my therapist about something that's happened to me because I was black, the horror on her face helps me acknowledge that wasn't cool.
It validates how you feel.
It validates how I'm feeling. Like the fact that when I just say it casually and they stop and say that's not okay, like, or because if I'm talking to a black person, I'll be like, oh yeah, no, they were like, hey, like this guy called me, thought that nigga with an ER is different than nigga with an A.
We've talked about that on this show.
Right.
For us, it's just like we've gotten that's so low on the bar of stuff that I have to worry about.
One Chile.
It's one Chile. It's just,
in fact, it's a little disappointing if they can't jump on board.
Yeah, it's just like, oh
God,
whatever. I'm not gonna talk to you. But it's like, But for somebody else, it's like this huge, like, oh wow, that's a whole lot. I can't believe that it ever happened to you. And it helps validate me. In knowing where the line is, where I should be treated, because they're coming from a position of they're the top, and they want everyone to be treated like the top. And so when I say something that's not in that vein. So when in my TED Talk, when I'm using these humors and stuff and looking at their faces and having them be like, oh, is that funny? Is that cool? It goes like, yeah, that feeling that you're feeling right there, you should be feeling that. The fact that I'm so casual about this is a problem. Is a problem. It's not a powerful character character thing for me. I'm not somehow super strong. I'm just black and used to it. Like in Muay Thai, they kick their legs against things until the nerve endings in their legs are dead, so they can kick harder. That's what that comedy is. It is dead nerve endings kicking against your sensibilities. I'm not feeling it, not because I'm born with super strong legs, but the fact is that I've been hit in this spot so long that it takes a lot to get through that sort of thing. And I can do more things than you can. I can wade into more of these things than you can. I can joke about more of these things than you can. So it's just just what it is. And that's why I think humor works so well, because it allows especially when used with white people or towards white people about racial stuff, it allows them to personally acknowledge where they fit in the hierarchy of things without me having to tell them, without me having to come right out and say it
and do the work to have to explain
explain it. They'll just they themselves realize that the fact that they're not sure if they can laugh about that is acknowledging where the difference is without me having to get into it with them, and they are now subtly already on the path to, why is this so different? Why aren't I feeling that way?
In Canada, they would have these listening sessions with First Nations people. White people register, volunteer to just listen, right? And these First Nations people sign up and they just unload, and all the white person does is listen. And I like based on what you're just saying, like doing Blackout, I've seen these parallels where why is it cathartic that these white people, they leave our shows and they go, man, we laughed and all that, and also I felt so uncomfortable at times and I didn't know how to say, and I'm like, okay, that's your thing. Yeah. But I was like, wow, does that make me feel validated? But it does.
So it's like it's good to know.
Heard.
It's good to know that because it's the people of color. And again, there's so many marginalized groups that will feel this way, but people of color tend to feel as if it's that they're insane. Is that people keep telling you that these things aren't a thing, and then you keep experiencing them, and it's a way to break the collective spirit of any group of people that are being marginalized. And so humor and seeing the reaction to that humor is a way to stop that.
I think that what you're saying is so important, just to put all of this into words in a way that, at least for me, is very digestible, because I have not been in many like when I first started performing in a primarily white theater, that silence after my truthful and honest comedy made me feel invalidated. And I think that so many performers and artists and just BIPOC folk who are performing in front of white people, if we see this exactly how you just described it, it becomes a moment of empowerment. Like, I can think of several students that I've had that live in primarily white cities, and they've asked me, like, do you just talk Spanish out of nowhere in front of a white audience? I'm like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm gonna start talking Spanish. So I think that this is very liberating for people, particularly doing comedy, like for a lot of our listeners who are performing, and they're like, well, maybe that didn't land. No, it landed exactly how it landed.
Exactly right. It landed. Yeah. And the fact that they didn't laugh, I think someone, I think it was, I don't remember what comedian it was. They were doing a joke. Oh no, Dave Chappelle. Of course it was.
I've been thinking about Dave Chappelle since we started this.
And they were doing a joke, and he said, I don't do this joke everywhere. Like, I want like the uncomfortable laughter, the uncomfortable. That's what I want. You hear one too many yeehaws, and it's time to shut that joke down. You know what I mean? Like, it's time to shut that joke down, and that's kind of like what it was. It's the difference between Like, so yeah, some jokes are not meant to get everybody to bust out laughing. If you're around a group of people like black people, they certainly will laugh, but it's not for everybody, or brown people. It's not for everybody to laugh. Sometimes it's for them to sit in that and just be like, that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot. It's for example, from my end of things, it's like when I hear female identifying people being like, men are trash.
I'd be like, yeah,
it's like if they're doing jokes
every day.
If they do jokes,
all of us.
they do jokes about that, right? And it's like all this, and for me, I'm like, this is not for me. I'm supposed to be like I'm supposed to be like, isn't that, how do I fix that? Like, I'm not supposed to be like, woo, this is the best thing. It's so fun. It's fun, like, to acknowledge it. It's obviously to acknowledge it, but like, there are jokes out there that aren't for me. Like, they just aren't for me to like be around. Like, I'm supposed to feel like, hooah. Now I feel like I have a pretty good sense of humor. I feel like I understand my place and stuff in a lot of ways. So it's easier for me to kind of like get in and empathize with someone and laugh because I'm empathizing with them. But at the same time, again, one too many yeehaws, and it starts to becoming they're like it
starts to become part of the cycle and the corporate cycle, like we talked about at the very beginning of the episode.
Beginning. Exactly right. Woo. All the way back to Black Mirror. You don't want to become a part of the cycle.
Hey.
And if you remember that episode, they were all on cycles. We did it. All right, everybody.
Let's take a commercial break. Let's go to commercial break, and then we'll wrap it up. Do you need a therapist? Do you need a therapist that can treat you as a superhero in your line of work? Come see me, Jack Prescott, a therapist for superheroes. I've had many clients from all around, some of them with privilege, some of them with more privilege.
Just mostly privilege. It's just mostly privilege.
And I'm here to listen. Here's a little clip of a session I had with a client the other day.
So I was like sitting here in my $1 million mansion, right? It was one of my mansions. It was like one of my 8 mansions. And this guy, he wanted to feed his family or something. And he was moving crates from like but you're not supposed to move crates. And so I jumped off the building, right? And I just put my foot all the way down his throat.
No.
And now my ankle feels funny, and I just feel like I'm doing all this work.
Oh no! Yes, you are. Here, grab a Kleenex.
I don't use those Kleenexes. They're poor people Kleenexes.
Oh, right, fair. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Here, take a quilt that was handcrafted by an indigenous group. Yes. Jack Prescott at your service. Call today.
Jack Prescott does not take any insurance and only takes cash payments.
Yeah, cash payments.
Yes.
Oh, Nur-D, this has been a wonderful, wonderful.
Yes.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this.
Good. Yeah, anytime you want to come back, we'll do some stuff. Honestly, man, this is exactly what we love. I don't want to do the thing where you hear hosts recap, but I think it's necessary, right? Like you're what we love in our artists. I'll just say that on a human level. We love to see our artists evolve in front of us in real time. Yep. And that's what your role is, I believe, right? It's express yourself so we can see ourselves in you, and you do it you do it fiercely and also by fierce and brave, I mean you are committed to being Nur-D.
Yeah.
And that resonates across all races and gender. Like when someone is committed to their authentic self, it's touching and it's moving and it's inspiring, and we love it, and we are going to keep on championing you and cheering for you, and we're rooting.
And it inspires us to continue to recommit to ourselves.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's what I've experienced here, at least. Right?
Yeah. And so we want to just say thank you, and I can't wait for 5 years from now or 10 years, like what You know, this is where we are at 2021,
Yes.
and this is the conversation.
We're gonna be in a whole different spot. I believe it. If as more and more people start becoming their authentic self, and whether that's because they need to change because they finally realize where their authentic self lies, or because they've gained the strength and power from themselves, we will be moving into a brighter future, I believe.
Yeah. Damn. That's it. That's
we did it.
We did it.
Fuck. Who's crying? I'm not crying.
I cried a couple times throughout of this. I'm gonna have to edit my sniffles out of this joint.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you want to support Nur-D, be sure to follow him on social media at NerdRocks. You can also find links to his social as well as his TED Talk in the episode details. Nur-D also started a nonprofit foundation called Justice Frontline Aid. I'll let him tell you all about it.
I founded an organization called Justice Frontline Aid, where we provide equipment, we provide aid, supplies, and marshaling services to people out here doing the best work for justice, helping out with events, marches, occupations, things of that nature. And so if you could donate at justicefrontlineaid.org, this shows you how to donate. Anything you do could really, really help. It really helps us all. Helps us buy like gloves and socks and mittens and shirts for people and hand warmers and all of that fun stuff to make those events run smoothly and safely. That would be super awesome. If you want to help me specifically, as in Nur-D, I am totally down for you going on nerdyrocks.com and buying a shirt, buying a fanny pack or a beach towel or some version of things for you. And every bit of that really does help as well.
Reach out to us on social media or Gmail at Elise and John Show to let us know what you've thought about the show so far or what you want to hear more of. Otherwise, catch you on our next glorious episode. Peace out.